Hello everyone and welcome to music class. Today we will be looking at the basics of sight reading. At the end of this class, pupils should be able to define sight reading and differentiate it from music notation. They should be able to identify a staff. They should be able to identify the various clefs that we have in music, the common clefs that we use in music, and they should also be able to identify the treble staff, the bass staff, and the grand staff. So what is music notation and what exactly is sight reading? Music notation is the process of representing audible music with symbols. That means you take the music that you can hear and you begin to represent it using symbols. Now, sight reading is the reverse process of notation. This means that it involves reading the notation and performing it as music. As you can see here, this infograph will show to you here music. When we take audible music and we begin to represent it using symbols, the process is notation. And on the other hand, when we take symbols and we begin to read it and perform it as music, that process is sight reading. Now with music notation, it is possible to show the pitch of a note, that is how high or how low a note is, and it's also possible to show the length of a note, that is how long or how short a musical note is. Now it is worthy of note that all notes, it is important for us to remember that all notes derive their names from the musical alphabets. Of course, we know that those alphabets are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Now, where the row of alphabets need to continue upwards beyond G, then we have to start the sequence again from A. So it means if we go all the way from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, instead of going on to H, we have to start all over again. Same thing happens if the sequence is falling downwards from A, which means it goes backwards. G, F, E, D, C, B, A, and when we get to A, we have to go back and start from G again. So here I have a bit of quiz for us. The first one says, what is notation? Well, if you said music notation is the process of representing music using symbols, then you're correct. Good job and well done. Second question says, what is sight reading? Well, again, if you said sight reading is the reverse process of notation, and that it involves reading the notation and performing it as music, then again you're correct. Good job and well done. Third question says, music notes derive their names from? Well, it's simple. They derive their names from the musical alphabets. Again, we know that the musical alphabets are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Quickly, we will do a review of some of the previously studied concepts about the staff. We said the staff has 5 lines and 4 spaces, and that music written on a staff is read from the left to the right. Just like you read in your book, you start from the left and progress to the right. Same thing with the staff. When you read music on a staff, you start from the left and progress to the right. Oops, sorry. Now, the higher the pitch of a note, then the higher up a staff that note will be placed. What does that mean? It means that if I have a very high note, I'm going to probably place it up on the staff, and if I have a very low note, I'm going to place it lower on the staff. Okay, so the position of a note on the staff can tell you the pitch of that note. If the note is high up here on his staff, then he has a very high pitch. And if it comes low down here on the staff, then it means he has a very low pitch. Okay, moving on. We said musical notes can be written on the lines and spaces of a staff. As you can see, these notes are written on the lines of a staff. The line is cutting the note head into two equal portions. Musical notes can also be written on the spaces of a staff. As you can see here, the note head is resting on that region that is between the two lines of the staff. Well, remember that high notes are placed really high on the staff, right? And low notes are also placed really low on the staff. Now, sometimes there are notes that are so high or so low such that they fall outside the range of a staff. Now, what do we do for those notes? For these notes, we have to use additional lines that are called ledger lines. Now, you see this note right here, it has a very high pitch. That's why it's high up on the staff. And this one, excuse me, this one is higher. And you see this one is even higher, and you see a very short line running through it. That line is a ledger line. It's the same line that goes on like that, just that it's a broken line. So here you see that same line, but now the note head is on top of the line. Here you see that same line and another ledger line on top of it, and so on and so forth. If you look at these notes, you see that they are very low in pitch, and you see that they have been placed really low on the staff using ledger lines. An ordinary staff has no pitch really. What this means is that there are no alphabet names attached to any of its lines and spaces. So to establish the pitches on a staff, we have to use a symbol that is known as the clef. A clef is a symbol that is placed at the beginning of a staff to show the pitches on that staff. Again, a clef is a symbol that is placed at the beginning of a staff to show the pitches on a staff. What this means is that without a clef, there are no pitches on a staff. So without a clef, you cannot say this line is E or F or B. You can't say that space is A or D or C, okay, until you place a clef on the staff, and then you begin to establish the notes that are on that staff, the pitches that are on that staff. There are two common types of clefs, and those clefs are the treble clef and the bass clef. Right here we have the treble clef, and down here we have the bass clef. I'm sure these are familiar symbols already. Now, the treble clef, when placed on an empty staff, establishes the pitch of the first line as E. So if I take this treble clef here and I place it on a staff like that, immediately it tells me that my first line here is E. The pitch on that first line is E, okay? And of course, this emerging staff will be known as the treble staff, okay? I'm sure we remember that all the lines then will continue from E and go on to say every good boy deserves favor, and the spaces will go on to say Father Abraham cooks eggs. The process is similar here as well. The bass clef, when added to a staff, establishes that the first line of the staff is G, no more E, okay? Now here I have a bass clef. If I take this bass clef and I add it to a staff like this, immediately it tells me that my first line here is G, okay? With the treble clef, it tells me that this same first line is going to be E. I hope you remember that we reckon the lines and spaces of a staff from the bottom to the top, and that's why I have my first line down here, and of course this line up here is going to be line number 5. Sometimes the treble staff and the treble and bass staves are joined together using a line and a brace. Here I have my line and here I have the brace. This curly bracket is referred to as the brace. Now when we join the treble staff and the bass staff together, it gives us what is known as the grand staff or the great staff. So if you hear grand staff or great staff, they are talking about the same thing. Music for the piano is usually written on the grand staff. What this means is that the treble staff will contain music for the right hand and the bass staff will contain music for the left hand.